Hello there, students. Thank you for being part of this presentation. Today we're looking at United States History, U.S. History Semester A, and we're looking at Unit 1, the historical process. And our main focus is gathering and interpreting historical sources tutorial. Please remember that you need to have a notebook in order to take notes. This way, when it comes time to answering questions, you are able to answer them by using all of the notes that you've taken. And the objective for today is that you will review and describe how historians gather and interpret historical evidence. Let's move on. This is page 10 of Gathering and Interpreting Historical Sources tutorial, and this is a fairly simple activity. You're given here a whole bunch of tiles. In this case right here, you see tiles of political cartoon, photograph, newspaper editorial, songs, personal narratives, secondary source, and map. You are reading the description here and you are basically moving the tile. If it belongs here, you put it there. And make sure that you read all the descriptions and make sure that everything matches. Once everything matches, you will be able to move on throughout the tutorial. Let's move on to the next activity. We are now on page 12 of Gathering and Interpreting Historical Sources tutorial, and this is your lesson activity. Sources of historical evidence. Let's review the directions so you'll know what to do here. Read the instructions for this self-check activity, type in your response to each question, and check your answers. At the end of the activity, write a brief evaluation of your work. Activity. Complete the chart to identify the kinds of information and benefits provided by each type of primary source historical evidence. For each resource, list an example of how this particular type of source can help support an argument. Again, you have to use your notes and you have to go to the previous pages also of this particular tutorial if you have any more questions. But all you're doing here, you're given a whole bunch of primary source documents, maps, charts and tables and graphs, letters and diaries, advertisement, photograph, political cartoons, and any other. And what you're doing here is explaining the benefits. For example, if you have historical evidence, in this case a map or maps, how can you interpret the map? What are the benefits of interpreting and using maps in order to describe historical evidence or be able to explain what happened in a certain region at a certain time period? And you do the same thing for the other type of resources that are here. Make sure you're being thorough. Make sure that you're explaining everything in a couple of sentences. Let's move on. We are now on page 19 of Gathering and Interpreting Historical Sources tutorial, and this is another lesson activity that we're going to be looking at. And this is interpreting the evidence. Let's read the directions so you'll know what to do here. Read the instructions for this self-check activity, type in your response to each question, and check your answers. At the end of the activity, write a brief evaluation of your work. Activity A. Now that you have analyzed the sources provided in this lesson, write your own response to the question. What is the main reason the U.S. Civil War started? Base your response on your own interpretation of the historical evidence. Again, you have to go back and view the evidence that has been given to you on the previous pages of this tutorial. In that way, you will be able to provide. In this case, it's your own interpretation that you are providing. Make sure that you use obviously evidence, and based on that evidence, you are providing the interpretation. Also, make sure you write at least a good solid paragraph here so your teacher will know that you are understanding the entire content. Part B. Now analyze your response. Treat your work as a secondary source of historical evidence. Try to be an unbiased observer of your own writing as you answer the following question. What is the credibility of this source? Please go back again to what you wrote, that really nice paragraph that you wrote, and answer this question here. Provide also another paragraph here. Make sure that you are being thoughtful. Make sure that you are demonstrating that you know the content. Do not just answer this question with one sentence or two sentences. Make sure you are being thorough. That is the main goal here. Part C. Is there any noticeable bias? Make sure that you know what the term bias means, and make sure that you are able to describe if there is a notable bias. please explain why. If there's not, please explain why also. You have to provide a reason here. Do not just say, yes, there's a bias, or no, there's not a bias. Make sure that you are providing a good reason here. Part D. How does the argument differ from others you have read? Make sure again that you provide a good solid response here. Make sure that you go back and review what you have written, so this way you can provide a solid, thoughtful response for this particular activity here. This is our last activity that we have to work on for this tutorial. Please make sure you continue to the other or remaining pages of this tutorial so you'll have a better understanding of what is gathering and interpreting historical sources really means. You have a good one.